descriptive and analytical research method or study approach. It's not one of the things that I was able to use over the last couple of hours is to just go through the slides and to, I know it's Monday and I know that you guys are prepping for an exam tomorrow, so I took out a lot of the statistical analysis stuff because I felt like I wanted you guys to have an understanding. So as it relates to your project that you're going to be presenting groups at the end of the semester, I wanted to make sure that you guys had enough information to be able to describe what kind of study methodology you're using, to be able to talk about your study, describe your study. But for the most part, this is not a statistics course, and so I have to take that in light of the fact that this is not a heavy statistics course, or not a course that I will teach the way I would teach to my graduate students who are doing heavy data analysis, heavy stuff. For you guys, I felt like it's a good opportunity for you to get a basic understanding of descriptive methodology, which is usually used to describe, and analytical methodology, which is usually there's some kind of analysis that is involved. And so I'm going to try not to bore you to death, but for the most part, try to get to the material in an accurate way. The other thing that I'm trying to do, as I'm lecturing more in courses, one of the things that I have a tendency to do is I have a tendency to speed when I get nervous, to talk a lot faster when I get nervous. And so that's something that I'm trying to slow down, articulate as much as I can, so that you guys can have a much more clear and concise understanding of the course material. So I'll try to do that today as well. So I'll slow down. It's not a heavy-based presentation or lecture-based for today, and so there's there's time work involved to get through all the slides in an adequate time period, and to get you guys out over the next 45 minutes. All right? Okay. So essentially, what we're going to do for the first half of class, we're going to talk about an overview of study designs. All right. So the book talks about 7 study design. And we're going to, for the most part of this lecture, we're going to talk about those 7. The book talks about 8, and so we're going to talk about 7 of them. The design selected must be appropriate to the study goal. So when you're thinking about a research study design or a methodology, it has to be appropriate to your study goal. What do you want to accomplish? So that is essentially the research objective, the research hypothesis, and the research question. And so for the most part, when you're deciding to select a study approach, that's the 3 elements that it has to, be appropriate to: the research objective, the question, and the hypothesis. All right, so once again, the book talks about 8. The core overview of the lecture is going to be designed around the study approaches. So we have a case series study, which is our case series approach, which is usually used to describe individuals with a disease. So say, for example, you're a clinical pharmacist at the CDC, and you've noticed that a bunch of patients are coming in with this specific blue rash. And so you decided, okay, I'm going to just write this up. It's just a case series. You're just noticing these series of cases that are coming in, and you're just documenting the cases that are coming in. All right? Then we have the cross-sectional survey. This is what's very common. You usually see this on like SurveyMonkey, or you usually see this, say for example, after your classes, you get an evaluation to rate the professor or to rate what the content. That's essentially a cross-sectional survey. And it's usually designed to describe exposure and the disease status in the population. So say for example, you want to know how many pharmacy students got the flu in the spring. You surveyed pharmacy students across the country, and you looked at, okay, these are the amount of students who they got the flu. So what is the exposure? The exposure is the flu, and the exposure is the flu, and the disease is, did they get the flu? So the flu, stop, let me break it down. All right, so the exposure is, all right, you're stressed. It's a time of the year where it's the flu season. Did you get the vaccine or not? And then you looked at whether or not you got the flu. So that's just classic cross-sectional survey. Survey pharmacy students across the country at the end of the spring semester, did you get the flu? It's just it describes a disease in a population at a specific time. Then you have case control studies, cohort studies, experimental studies, qualitative studies, correlational study, and then meta-analysis. So for the rest of the presentation, we're going to go through the rest of these study approaches and their goals. All right? All right, so the first critical decision when you're thinking about a study approach is you have to think about, is it going to be conducted primary, secondary, and is it going to be a tertiary study? And so the basic outlook of these are primary study design are you're collecting new data, right? This is figure 7-2 from the book. Primary study design, you're collecting new data. These typically are your case studies, cross-sectional studies, case control studies, cohort study, experimental study design, and your qualitative studies. Secondary data studies, and we're going to talk a bit more about some of these. You're going to use existing data. So these could be correlational studies, so existing data. Say, for example, you're working at a pharmacy and you have a large, or a hospital pharmacy, and you have a large data set of patients who are being treated for diabetes. And so you have this diabetes data set, this large diabetes data set. You can use that existing data to look at, to design secondary data analysis or secondary study designs. And so these would be correlational study, case series studies, cross-sectional study, case control studies, cohort study, experimental study. And then if you want to do a tertiary study, it reviews the literature. These are essentially literature review or meta-analysis. Primary studies usually take longer than secondary data studies because you have to create that data. It's not existing data. All right. Time frame for primary data collection. So these are examples: cross-sectional study, case control study. All necessary information about the present and past can be collected at one time, and that's relevant for case control studies and cross-sectional studies. For case series studies and qualitative studies, time requirements depend on the selected study design. So if I'm doing a qualitative study of pharmacy students who got the flu, I'm going to do a focus group and I'm going to interview pharmacy students. And in that interview, I'm recording that interview, so at the end of the interview, I can take that qualitative survey data or that qualitative focus group data, look at specific things that emerge from that data, and then do some analysis. So that's going to take me some time. All right. For cohort study and experimental study, participants must be followed forward from a baseline exam. So if, for example, you're looking at all third-year pharmacy students and you want to see whether or not they were successful after they graduated from pharmacy school and passed in an NAPLEX, that's a cohort study because you're looking at all third-year pharmacy students in the country and you're following them past rotations, and then after that until they sit for the boards and whether or not they pass or not. So that's a cohort study. So you're following these people over a course of time, over a period of time forward in the future. So that's a cohort study. Okay, primary studies can be selected based on the exposure, disease, or population motivation for the study. So whenever you see this concept, EDP, it's essentially exposure, disease, or population. So if I gave you a quiz question, EPD is short for, it's essentially exposure, disease, or population. I might put in some other terminology in there in terms of exposure, disease, and outcome, but essentially, it's just that EPD is essentially exposure, disease, or population. So primary study design can be selected based on those things. So based on the exposure, the disease, and the population. So that's one of the main take-home of primary study. All right, this looks confusing. It's not. I'm going to try to break it down real simple. So, all right, so population selection. The other main thing is we want to talk about the study population, right? So typically, the study population is essentially representative of the disease that you're interested in studying. So say, for example, if I want to study cancer, and I'm limited my study to individuals with prostate cancer in the state of Georgia. That's my population. I just narrowed it down. I started out with prostate cancer, and then I limited it to individuals in the state of Georgia, right? So population selected for each study approach. So select participants based on the disease, right? Then I can decide whether or not I want to have a comparison group or no comparison group. So this is no comparison group or comparison group. And then based on that, it's essentially telling me, so this is essentially a flow diagram for selected case series studies, cross-sectional studies, case control studies, cohort studies, and experimental study design. And so based on whether or not I'm going to have a comparison group or no comparison group, it's a rubric that's showing me what is essentially the study design that I'm interested in. All right. So it's just a diagram that shows how you select your population for each of the study designs. All right. So the first kind of study design that we're going to talk about is case series. And just remember from what we just basically to remember from what we talked about in the beginning of the class, case series studies are essentially there's no control group, there's no control group, there's no intervention. It's just to describe cases. So a case report describes one patient. So say for example, if you were, once again, go back to the example at clinical pharmacist at the CDC, you notice that your patients are coming in with this blue rash. You describe one patient, it's a case report. Case series, if you see multiple patients coming in, and so you're describing anywhere from 2 to 7 patients, 2 to 50 patients, that's a case series. Describe a group of individuals with the same disease or who have undergone the same procedure. Case series. Key characteristics of case series. Primary study question. What are the key characteristics of the cases in the study population? So back to the example, clinical pharmacist at the CDC, you see your patients coming in with this blue rash, and you say, okay, what's the key characteristics of these patients? All of them are coming in with this blue rash. The other objective population, all individuals in the study must have the same disease or be undergoing the same procedure. So everybody has that blue rash. When to use this approach, a source of cases available and no comparison group is required or available. So when do you use case series? So you notice that you started seeing that cases are coming in. You're a clinical pharmacist and you're seeing the patients coming in with this blue rash. And so that's your case, what you call it. Requirements and appropriate source of cases available so patients are coming into your pharmacy. And then the rest you guys can see, it talks about your first step, what to watch out for, you're essentially, so with case control studies or with case series studies, one of the issues that you have to watch out for is that it's because the disease is something that's usually very rare, and so you're documenting these cases, you can't generalize it. So you can't say everybody coming in to my pharmacy with this blue rash at the CDC, this is the disease that they have, because you're documenting a couple of cases that it's not something that there's enough evidence out there for you to there's not enough evidence out there for you to say conclusively that the blue rash is related to a specific disease. All right. All right. Case definition. A clear case definition spells out inclusion and exclusion criteria. Everybody in this room knows about ICD-9 codes, and so for example, if the example of being in the pharmacy, people are coming in with that blue rash. So the case definition is the case. What's the inclusion criteria? You're doing you started interviewing some cases, and they say, okay, well, we all went to, you see, one of the things that I like to do on the weekend is I like to watch Georgia Public broadcast. And so last night they had Victoria on, and essentially one of the episodes young Victoria. So one of the episodes that they were talking about was when Jon Snow, who's the father of modern epidemiology, was looking at the individuals looking at the water pump and looking at the cholera outbreak, right? And so, and there was, I'm sure it's a show, and so essentially they're going to dramatize it a little bit. But one of the characteristics about Jon Snow was that he was very afraid to approach Victoria, the Queen of England, until he had a conclusive proof that this water well was causing cholera. And so he went back and he interviewed patients, and he did a lot of the stuff that that this textbook walked through in terms of your methodology, and then he realized that yes, indeed, this water well was causing the cholera outbreak. And so he had a very clear definition of the case. He knew what the case. He had a very clear definition of the case. in his time, ICD-9 codes would not have been helpful because he didn't have access to ICD-9 codes, but he was a physician in England, so he would have access to other things that would have been able to help him to define those cases, all right? And then he went back to this thing that's called person, place, and time. And so based on his definition of what was leading to the cholera outbreak, he was able to interview people to look at person, place, and time over a period of time to look at what are some of the characteristics that spelled out the case definition of cholera. Analysis, few numbers are required for most case theory studies, and so that's usually the case because it's not a large population of individuals, so usually usually case theory studies are very smaller, and so when you're doing your analysis, you don't need a large data set or a large number of patients to do your analysis. Some of these things, case fatality rate, mortality rate, population proportionate mortality rate, are classic epidemiology terms. And if you want me to go into more detail, you can send me an email and I can talk about these cases. However, for the basis of this class, I decided not to go into these statistical calculation of case fatality rate and stuff like that. All right. So the next thing that we're going to, so we talked about case series. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is cross-sectional surveys. All right, so cross-sectional surveys essentially equals prevalence study. So say, for example, you're interested in what's the prevalence of the flu in third year, spring semester, pharmacy students at the University of Georgia. I'm interested in what's the prevalence of the flu. It's also used to describe community, assess population needs, support program planning, monitor and evaluate programs, establish baseline data for longitudinal studies, and then examine relationship between phenomena. These are some key characteristics of cross-sectional studies. So what's your primary study question? What is the prevalence of the exposure or disease in the population? So what is the prevalence of the flu in third year, spring semester, pharmacy student at the University of Georgia? Population, the study population must be representative of the population from which the study is drawn. So if I'm sampling a population of third year pharmacy students at the University of Georgia, and I'm not going to sample your entire class, everybody that's in your class, in your cohort of class for third year pharmacy student, and I just decide, okay, I'm just going to do a sample of all of you guys in this room. If that sample is representative of everybody in the third year class, because you guys are all third year pharmacy students, you're in your spring semester, and you're at the University of Georgia. So that's representative of the larger population of everybody that's in your third year cohort. Okay. The other stuff, when to use this approach, time is limited or budget is an issue, and so the rest of the other stuff is there. Representative population. The participants must be reasonably representative of the larger population. So if I did a sample of third year pharmacy students in their second year who had the flu, you guys would be representative of the larger third year pharmacy students at UGA. Analysis, essentially we can talk about prevalence, and a lot of this we talked about in the statistical analysis course, the statistical evaluation of the research literature course that we did, I think it was last spring. And so essentially prevalence, you can look at prevalence rate, which is the percentage of the population with a given trait at the time of the survey. And then you can look at prevalence rate ratio. So this is the ratio that compares the prevalence of the characteristics in two subgroups. So usually this is individuals who have the disease versus doesn't have the disease. And then in terms of analysis, no time dimension, cannot establish causality, can't establish association or relationship. So essentially what you're saying is you can't say this caused the outcome, but you can't say this is associated with the outcome. All right, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is analytical study approaches, case control study approaches. All right, Participants are recruited based on disease status. You can have cases, so these are individuals with the disease of interest, and you can have control, and these are individuals without the disease of interest. So case control studies, you're doing a comparison of individuals with disease versus individuals who does not have the disease. Case control studies are good for studying uncommon diseases. Doesn't have to be likely, but it can be. It's a good source. It's not a hard and firm rule, but essentially it's good for studying uncommon diseases. Classic key characteristics, as we talked about with the other three study approaches. What is the study question? Does cases and control have different exposure histories? Population case and control must be similar except for their disease status. So the case and control must be similar except for their disease status. So the big exception is that cases will have the disease, control will not have the disease. And things to watch out for is this thing called recall bias. So recall bias is essentially when there's a significant amount of time that has gone or has passed since the exposure has occurred, and then you're asking someone, can you remember what you did that caused you to get this blue rash? And they're like, I can't remember. So that's essentially recall bias. It's been typically when we're doing studies, we try to limit to tell me what happened in the last month. And then if you want to even limit it further than that, you can say, tell me what happened in the last 2 weeks. People can't remember what happened in the last 2 weeks. People can remember what happened in
Dr. Coburn, I think your mic went out. Yeah. We can't hear you in Augusta.
Stop.
I don't know why. Dr. Coburn, we can't hear you in Augusta. Alright, I think we're just broken. Pause!
Does anyone ever shut this?
No, honestly. Can't hear you.
Yes. Honestly, we can
Oh, so then we can't hear you there. Look, oh, we just leave it.
We're going to get some.
Wait, you see that still?
Yeah.
I'll be in your eyes.
I'm good, thank you. I have food.
No,
When I post about it, people are saying, what? They have the same birthday? I don't know.
No.
Do you tell your friends? Yo, broski.
Oh, he's looking at it now.
Your mic died.
Oh, long time ago.
Olivia told me.
Hey.